Welcome everyone. So glad you're all here. So glad you were all able to make it. Let's jump right into it because I know we started a little bit late. When I tell us about the genesis of this story, one thing I love about documentary films, oftentimes what happens, your intention is to tell one story, and as you get in it, you have to follow the story. So can you tell us how this all came about and what was the original idea, or was this the original idea too? Or you want?
I want to start with Erik, because Erik was originally the guy that gave me the call, and you can set the tone. I think this was 2004, right?
Yeah. So just the actual start. I don't. Can you guys hear me? Okay, right? I don't really know.
Yeah, this one's still dead.
But okay, I was in around 2004. I was the music editor of Vibe magazine, and one of the first stories that I was assigning was, I think it was one of the first stories, I can't remember, but it was a 10-year anniversary of ILLMATIC, the album. And that album was really powerful to myself, my friends, and probably all of you in this room. But because it represented something bigger than just us, but it represented a generation. It was an excellence and it spoke for us. And so after the story was done, there was all this, the contacts and all this stuff that was still there and so much more to tell. And I just thought it would be a great idea at that time to do what we all were doing, were DVDs. So it was to do an ILLMATIC DVD of the making of ILLMATIC 10 years later. So we thought we would get together, and me, 19, a couple of friends who loved the album sat down and said, let's do something big about ILLMATIC. So we all said, yes, let's do it. We started going out after our jobs, our day jobs. 19 had a camera, Eddie, Earl had cameras, and we had access. So we would call Pete Rock and say, hey, you want to talk? Call Premiere, say, hey, you want to talk? And it wound up taking a 10-year journey to get there. But so if you see the film, there's some really old footage of like Oludara, which was one of our first interviews, which was our first interview, right? 19?
Yeah, I would say, the first interview with Oludara is really what set it off for us to think about a bigger picture, bigger than making a biopic type piece. The history that Oludara gave went back to the jazz era, went back to Natchez, Mississippi, and really gave us a 4-hour interview of the spiritual sense that the Jones family had. So, and we should point out too that we did the first 2 years really, actually we did maybe about between 2 and 5 years without Nas. We did this on our own, like
about 6.
It's about 6, yeah. But what we did, we took interviews from Oludara and some of the other producers like Premiere and so forth, and we compiled a list and we cut a trailer and we sent that to Nas's manager at the time, and he brought Nas to the dinner table, but he wasn't fully committed. So you just imagine just 2 guys who didn't grow up with Nas, didn't know him, but had the passion to create something bigger than. We did this on our own, no funding, just out of pocket. And then after about 6 years in, we were able to get to the Ford Foundation through some friends. Just long story short, we sent trailers out, and one of the DPs at the time was Bradford Young. Some of you may know him from Selma, Pariah,
Star Wars
now. Howard University grad, and he set up a meeting with us, with the Soros Foundation and also the Ford Foundation. Ford Foundation at the time gave us a grant. That was former director of Eyes on the Prize, Orlando Bagwell, and he said, you guys, I feel that you can create something, we need this voice, not just in hip hop but in film. So that's what really catapulted the film, and after that Nas came on board.
Am I on that? Oh, here we go.
I don't know if we answered that question, but...
No, that you answered that question. No, you answered it beautifully because, like I said, with documentary, you start with one thing and then you have to get somewhere else. So it took what, it took several years to kind of get the base and then get to him and convince him. How did you do that too?
Well, first he said, show me a proof of concept. Basically, he gave us a research grant, and we took that money, which we thought was a lot, coming from zero. It wasn't too much, but it was enough to get an interview with Nas and set the base for the film. But in order to answer your question on how we follow the story, we basically wanted to do something bigger than, so we looked at the album as themes. So New York State of Mind, we wanted to look at the history of projects in New York. We also wanted to look at the history of Queensbridge. Life's a Bitch, we wanted to look at the family being broken apart. One Love, we wanted to look at the prison systems, but do it in a way that felt very organic to the film. So we used that as kind of a way to break the narrative structure up, and then looked at that, and that kind of framed it. And from there, we wanted to get really authentic stories from everybody, especially his brother Jungle. So that was a challenge, but...
Let me just say this one point, because you asked how did we get Nas on board eventually, and the story of that is we were chasing after him for all these years. He gave us one interview, but he still was not on board. So it was around 8 years in, 2 years, or it was about 8 or 9 years in, and the 10-year anniversary was coming up, and they were looking to do a 10-year anniversary film. So Anthony, Nas's manager, was like, hey, I've been talking to these guys, you know, they've been doing all this work, you should go check it out. And we at that time, we had tapes upon tapes. You know, we had an office, you know, we rented the office, and we would go in every day and go to work. We had tapes upon tapes, we had, you know, pictures from everybody he could imagine. We scoured all of the archives you could even think of. So Anthony said, okay, well, Nas is going to come by. He only got 20 minutes. So he'll look at what you got. He's going to decide who he's going to allow to do his 20-year anniversary ILLMATIC documentary. So at this point, we only interviewed Nas. We could never get Jungle. Jungle was like a ghost. We even interviewed Roxanne before, but we didn't get Jungle. So Nas comes in, he comes up to our office, we're all proud and nervous because we're not sure if Nas is gonna, like, you know, this is gonna shut down. So Nas sits down and says, all right, well, you know, show me what you got. So we start playing him stuff, Nas starts playing stuff at the computer, and then he's like, he's seeing footage of himself, and he's like, oh, word, where you get this from? And it was like some of the footage that you see in there. Nas at 20 years old walking through the Queensbridge. He's like, yo, play something else, play something else. We're running out of stuff. Like, by this time, it's like an hour later, and he's still there. He's like, yo, call Jungle. He calls Jungle. Jungle comes up. We've been chasing Jungle for the last 4 years. Jungle comes up in 15 minutes. Like, he just calls like a bat signal. Like, him and Jungle have like a Nas signal that they just flash. And Jungle comes in the door, and we start over. Yo, look at Pops, play this, play this. So meanwhile, me and 19 are thinking like, ain't you Nas, don't you got someplace to go? Like, you have 20 minutes. He's there 2 hours with Jungle reminiscing, and then he just sits us down and is like, look, I see the work you've done. You know, this is a quote from him this time. This is going to be the best documentary ever. And then he was just like, you know, you guys are doing it, you know, just go ahead, let's do it. You know, and that's how we got
really
him on board.
great to get your subject to kind of trust you as filmmakers, that you're going to respect their story and tell it in a very fresh way. So you were talking about all the tapes and archival footage that you had, and one thing that I really loved about this film is editing that all together and telling that story. So I guess I'm giving props out to both of you, of course, but also to your researchers and your editors. So talk about that kind of like weaving all these parts together to tell that bigger story.
Well, we never made a film before ever, so we were not only director, producers, writers, we were PAs, we were editors, a lot of it, for most of it, through like 8, 9. I mean, we wound up doing everything, Eric and I, and we had a great crew. Some of you here, please stand up, because it takes a lot of people to make a film. I don't know who's here left, but we got Kane here. There's a few other people that work with us, editors on this. I mean, it's a lot that goes into making a film.
Original music. There's a lot of them probably here somewhere. Emilio was our magnificent PA. He's here. There's other people
we used to bring cameras across rooftops. I mean, we broke into MTV to steal some of that footage, off record.
Don't tell anybody that.
But no, there was a lot of stuff that went into it. But the editing process was basically, like I said, we looked at the album and really wanted to tell a story that went beyond just a hip hop story, but really a coming of age. Because we don't see a lot of films that represent, you know, us as a culture, that you really understand. You got to understand the backstories of where people came from, you know, the books they read, what drove them beyond. You know, there was things that Nas, you know, struggled with in school. Very prolific thinker. he said, you know, he wanted to go to school of visual arts and really actually become a comic book artist and a storyteller, filmmaker, but the resources weren't always there. But we always wanted to know what drove someone to become something bigger than. And we're very honored to have Roxanne here with us as well, because she was very influential in his life as well. So to get those stories and to hear those, to meet those people, you know, it kind of story tells itself, but we wanted to do it in a way that felt authentic to Nas's journey. And so he felt proud, extremely proud to really see this film and see it with his family, and he felt like, I remember his exact words were, "You guys made the movie that I wrote," you know, so, and we really appreciated that.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears here. Hello, Roxanne, Shante. So glad you're here tonight.
Thank you.
You've been in this, you're a true pioneer in the world of hip hop, and you kind of broke a big glass there. So talk to us about being a young woman. Were you 13 or 14 when you
14.
first 14?
Yes.
When you first started and breaking into what was considered maybe a man's genre, a men's world?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things about being 14 and being from Queensbridge, Queensbridge is the perfect prerequisite for life, period. It's like if you're from Queensbridge, you are prepared for anything that life can throw at you, because you're automatically growing up with close to 30,000 neighbors. Literal neighbors. Not, you know, most people say, okay, well, you know, on your neighborhood, on your block, you might know 10 people, 12 people. But when you're from Queensbridge, you can know up to a minimum of 30,000 people by facial recognition. So it prepares you for large crowds. It prepares you for being able to speak to large crowds. It lets you become very entertaining, because we learn a lot of entertainment from sitting on a bench outside of the buildings. It also prepares you just for life in general. And one of the main things was the talent and the music. We always joked about it and said that there was something in the water, besides the pollution from the Con Edison plant, that might have made us like superheroes. So like later on we'll find out that we got gamma rays. But right now we'll just take it as a blessing from Con Edison. Whenever the water was foggy, it's like, yeah, drink the foggy water, then you'll be able to freestyle. You know, so we always joked that we said it was something in the water, but we also knew that it was something that was passed on from generation to generation. And what we wanted to do was, we wanted to be not better than the last generation, but we wanted to show the last generation that we were as good as they were. So basically, even when it came to me threatening Nas, that was not a threat. That was almost like passing the baton and saying like, listen, you need to represent us. You're representing Queensbridge. You're representing us, and you're gonna be good. And if you're not going to be good, and if it doesn't turn out good, then these are the consequences, because we learn through consequences. So, you know, it's one thing if you say, okay, well, look, if you're not good, don't worry about it. You know, next time you'll do better. It's like, no, that's not what you say. You say, listen, you're gonna be good. I'm gonna fuck you up every time I see you. You know, and what it does is it allows someone like Nas to be creative, because they know, like, okay, these are the consequences. If I'm not good on this stage, if I don't represent on this stage, if I don't put my best and make every record seem like it's going to be my last, and not just make one good cut on an album, but make the entire album a hit. See, that's the difference between a lot of artists of today and artists of yesterday, is because the fact is, we didn't want to make just one good hit. We wanted the entire album to be a hit. We wanted you to put it in and never take it out. And that's what they did. That's what he did with ILLMATIC. That's what they did with ILLMATIC. The whole creation of it is that you want to create something that when someone plays it in their car, you never want them to crash looking for another tape in order to pop yours out, because they don't want to listen to another song. So going into the industry and being a female, I didn't go in just to be a great female rapper. I went in there to be a great rapper and a representative of Queensbridge. So that's what I came into the industry with.
I'm going to applaud that. Hi, Martha.
Hi.
Martha, you know, you're an associate producer on this film, and I know that your life's work and your life's passion is hip hop. Just take us through a little bit of you and how you got to Hip Hop Education Center, and all the work that you've been doing to support and to archive and to preserve and to educate the genre, the music.
Well, you know, I started out a long time ago, in the early 90s, working at Yo MTV Raps, I was working with Ted Demme and Fat Five Freddy and Ed Lover and Dr. Dre. Yes, yes. Yo, MTV Raps. And so that's where I got my education on media production. And because that was the golden era of hip hop, I met a lot of the artists at the time that were very humble and hungry and were very talented, and we were all like one big family. And Ted made the move to leave Yo MTV Raps and do a movie by the name of Who's the Man. And it was a slapstick movie about some guys who found oil in Harlem, but I helped with the casting. I used to read Ted's script. I was Ted's assistant, and so I used to read scripts, and he said, fill the movie with artists. So I helped Jackie Brown, who was the casting director at the time, to recruit 50 hip-hop artists in the movie. And they gave me co-casting credit, and we went to Hollywood to work on other movies, and I met Jerry Bruckheimer, and I was mentored by him, and I worked on Dangerous Minds, and everything was just like opened. The path was paid for me so that I can become a producer, and everybody wanted me to be a director because there weren't women directors. But I felt like Hollywood wasn't being true to hip hop, and so I became an independent filmmaker, and I teamed up with the RZA. The RZA produced my short film, and I had this vision. I was like, yeah, it's a global hip hop show, and hip hop is everywhere. And he just signed the check. He said, all right, do it. Okay, so I went off and did it. And when I was shopping my film to different festivals, I had a situation where a festival accepted me, and then they sent me a letter saying, sorry. And I called them like, what do you mean? You called me. You told me it was going to be, in your roster. And they said, no, we had another film. I said, what film? And it was some love and basketball film. And I was like, what? I was like, no way. This will never happen again. I'm going to start my own film festival, my own hip-hop film festival. And H2O, Hip Hop Odyssey, was created. And as a matter of fact, everybody on stage, Roxanne was the first one to be on my advisory board. She was the hostess with mostest, and she was just there from day one. 19's PSA was screened, and I believe you won an award at Odyssey Award. Erik spoke on a panel. He was a journalist at Source at the time, right? And so, we created a community of filmmakers together with the pioneers, with the artists, because that's very important. We can't work in a silo without the pioneers of the culture. And so that led to the development of education, hip-hop education, because the artists, the filmmakers, were creating curriculum around the films, and I found it fascinating. And as an educator, I was a teacher at the time, I was doing the same thing, and I saw, again, another offspring of hip-hop culture, which was a hip-hop education movement. And my love for hip-hop history, and just I'm a purist, and I love to hear stories from the elders, has always been something that has been my foundation. And so I have been able to make movies, create events, bring the younger generation together, and now I went back to school after 40 years old, and I got an archiving degree because I noticed that these institutions don't have hip-hop archivists, and so we're not a priority. Like, I'm the first hip-hop archivist. That's some crazy shit, right? Yes, that's crazy. That 40 years into the culture, we don't have this. We don't have our own museums. We don't have, and so this is why I not only work with first-time filmmakers, and Ted, Who's the Man was his first film, feature film. I also worked with Frank Reyes. I worked with Dream Hampton on her first documentary. 19 is a first-time filmmaker, and some other filmmakers. And then my next project is with another first-time filmmaker in the documentary sense because he's won an Academy for his feature films, but I like working with first-time filmmakers because they're open to my suggestions, and that's what I pretty much did with Erik and 19, is just giving them ideas and really pushed on the idea of like, this has to be educational. See this in classrooms. Make sure that you cover certain things, and I think I did pretty good. Right?
Yeah, no, terrific. I know we're pressed for a little bit of time, but I do want to open up some questions to the audience. So if you have any questions, I've got two people on both aisles. Just make sure that they're seen by you, and then they'll call it out. Any questions from the audience? Yes. Are you on? There you go.
Hello.
Hi.
Love the film, love everything that everyone on the stage does. Thank you so much. I had to write down my questions. Alright, so we see that Nas didn't complete traditional schooling, and many hip-hop artists don't, but we also see that he was self-educated in his home, ultimately being recognized by Harvard. Can you speak to the importance of education for all aspects of hip-hop and media, as we have people who want to quit school and see hip-hop as the popular way to get money legally?
Do you want to give it to one person? Martha, you want to address that?
I'll start.
Okay. Roxanne, you go first.
Well, as a hip-hop artist, the first thing I would like to say is that I strongly believe in furthering your education. I believe that the greatest rapper is an educated rapper. I think one of the things you need to know about is your publishing, your writers. There are so many things that you will not know about, on things that people will be able to take advantage of you if you do not have that knowledge. I think a lot of people think that all you have to do is have a microphone, a DJ, you spit some rhymes and you're gonna be all right. But there are millions of rappers that have done that, and they're not all right. And then those who are very successful, if you go into their backgrounds, you will find that they happen to be very educated, that they happen to hold college degrees, that they happen to hold these degrees in certain levels of education. I think is a requirement in order to be successful in hip-hop, period. That's my firm belief. Now, as far as Nas, we're gonna say that that's a 1 in a million shot. So that's a 1 in a million shot that is going to happen. But just because he was not traditionally educated, he was self-educated, but his home life and his parents were totally different. So that has a lot to do with it also. We're talking about growing up in a household where you did have your mother and your father to a certain level. We're not talking about letting the streets raise you and then you're just gonna go into hip hop and allow the industry to abuse you, because that's what happens. The streets raises you and then the industry abuses you. So I'm a firm believer of education.
I'll just add that, as an educator, I think it's our responsibility and the institutions, education institutions, to create curriculum that is appealing to students. I think too many times we, as students, don't see our history and, check out. And right now, with culturally relevant pedagogy, it is mandatory to include hip-hop history. We just don't enforce it, but that's part of what needs to happen, is that we need to do that. And with the film, I created a curriculum that I'm actually going to pilot at Harvard. I actually am a recipient of the Nasir Jones Fellowship. That's so crazy. The movie, and then I became, and so I'm going to pilot this not only at Harvard, at a high school in Boston, and at a correctional facility. And the goal is to make this viral and to put it in as many schools and correctional facilities as possible. So, we have to just create change within the education system, because too many times we're losing our students.
Thank you. Any other questions? Where are we going? Anyone? We have a question over here.
Hi, thank you all again. It was a great film. This is my 4th time watching this. It was awesome. Congratulations to you all. Erik and 19. We'll talk about my email later. But I just wanted to congratulate you guys again. And I don't know what your next project is, but Roxanne, I think you should do a documentary as well, just to, speak to the young women out here that are going in a direction that's kind of, I don't know what's going on. I work in education as well, and I'm just so disappointed in a lot of the
Do you want to tell them or do you want me to tell them?
Oh, something's about to go down?
Well, on one note, I do have my husband and I, we have a nonprofit organization which is called Mind Over Matter. We're located in the Newark, New Jersey public school system where we do mentor young ladies, and we have 100% graduation rate for the past 4 years. So congratulations to our graduating 2017 class. So yes, I am doing that, and now I'm going to leave it to him. I'm going to take a humble seat while he says this part. Okay, go ahead. Hit him with it.
Well, I'm glad you said that because Roxanne has her own biopic coming out this year. It premiered in the Sundance Film Festival. It's going to be released by Neon. And I'll just say the young woman who plays her name is Shante Adams.
Yes.
She is incredible. And Nia Long plays Shantae's mother, and she is gonna blow your mind. Nia Long is gonna blow your mind.
You know what? My sister is here in the audience. So one of the young ladies also plays my little sister. Well, can't call her little sister, but my sister Festina is here. Absolutely. Give her a round of applause for surviving. Being my sister. Yes, incredible. Yeah, Nia, there was some times when I was on the set, and this is what was incredible to me, because most people would say, okay, well, you know, if you're going to do a documentary or whatever, and it was produced by Pharrell Williams and Forrest Whitaker and Queen of Queens, and which is a great company. And one of the things that I experienced from an artist being able to see my story getting ready to be told on the big screen was the fact that there were some days that the acting was done so well that it was like reliving that part of my life, where some days I couldn't even come on set because, you know, the Roxanne Shante story is it's something. So, you know, yeah, so it was like some days I just would find myself in tears and have to literally stay away from set for like 3 or 4 days to recoup. That's how wonderful. And Mahershala Ali.
Mahershala Ali, I was going to say that
Yes.
too. He
Yes,
plays
he
her
does.
husband. He just won an
Yes.
Academy Award, as you all know, for Moonlight. It's a terrific performance, so I'm looking forward to having you guys all see that too. Roger, how are we doing? We should probably wrap it up. How are we doing? One more? Let's do one more. Okay, we have one more.
By the way, is Tila Rock still here? Okay. Thank
Tila
you for
Rock.
that.
Thank you.
And Genesis.
It's yours.
Yes, and Genesis B. Yes, thank you both very much.
I just wanted to ask what I don't know, it might be a typical question, but for anybody here, what do you think of hip hop right now, today? What's your opinion?
I'd like to hear Shantae's answer on that.
Quick answer.
See, y'all give me all the hard questions. Well, I'm gonna tell you, my look on hip hop today, hip hop has always been a reflection of what is going on in the streets, the neighborhood, in society today. And so it is definitely a reflection of it. I love hip hop. I loved hip hop yesterday, I love hip hop today, and I will love hip hop tomorrow. And so when I look at the hip hop artists of today, it is a reflection of exactly what we're going through today. It's exactly what we're living today. It's almost like watching our own version of the news. So unfortunately, we're going through a lot right now, and so is the culture of hip hop. But I see great things coming. So yes, my look at hip hop today, I love it.
Yeah, and I just want to add that, you know, most of the time we only see hip hop through the lens of the rapper, but we have b-boys, we have DJs, we have visual artists, graffiti artists, and we are doing amazing work. I mean, amazing. And we're building schools. We have hip hop hackathons. My partner Summer has a hip hop hacks, and they're sprouting all over the country. And we are selling art at museums and auction houses. You know, we're doing, as a community, as a culture, we're doing phenomenal. And I think the issue is not what you see on TV. Don't look at what's on the radio or on television. You have to dig deep, you know, and go to the cultural roots of hip hop, and you're gonna find its true essence and its creativity, and it's never going away. It's gonna be better and bigger and better.
I'd like to add to that, you know, when we look at young people, because, you know, my generation in the 80s was a golden era. But I mean, that was just my golden era. there are young people who are coming up now who value their Illmatic the same way we valued our Illmatic, and a generation before us didn't understand it. So I'm always careful about critiquing, or the type of critique that you give, or condemning the art of the young, of the youth, because we don't understand it. So I applaud a lot of what I see. Some of it's not for me, but some of it I applaud because it is for me, and some of it's just not for me. But just like Illmatic wasn't for my mother or wasn't for my father. I remember my aunt telling me they talk too fast.
Right.
Like, they talking too fast. And I never want to be my Aunt Lena who told me that, you know, rappers alike was talking too fast. So I try to listen and I try to understand. The other thing I want to make a point before we go, because I know you're trying to wrap up, but the thing about this film, and Charlie Ahorn who's here, and people who have paved the way for what we've done in our film with Time is Illmatic, the thing about this film to us that made it special for us, and probably what some audiences have picked up on, is one, it was made with a passion, not for commercial use. It was made with the same spirit Illmatic was made, in which an artist said, I have something to say. I want Nas says at the end of Illmatic, I wanted people to know I was here. And that gives me chills when I think about him saying that, because that's what we all want. And that's the call of every artist, that's the call of every human, that's the call of every person in the hood or wherever they are. They want to know, leave something behind, to let the world know that they were here, that they mattered. But the thing about this film was, and what you might not recognize in this film, I mean what you recognize in this film but you might not know what it is that we were given a chance. When Orlando Bagwell was at Ford Foundation, he was a brother who saw this film. No one would touch our film. No one would touch our idea. No one thought this had any merits. No one who had the power to make it happen, that is. We knocked on a lot of doors. He saw us. We were just young filmmakers, if we wanted to call ourselves that. We had an idea, we had a thought, we had a passion. And he said, you know what? I'm going to take some of this money and I'm going to pair it with your vision. And he allowed us to do that. And this film did cost a lot of money to make by documentary standards. And the difference is, when you see us trying to make documentaries and we're trying to be creative, and you can say, and we can criticize and not see the vision the way the filmmakers intended the vision, and you might see a Rolling Stones documentary and you'll see, wow, how did they do this? But the documentary on, you know, Boogie Down Productions doesn't look the same. There's a lot of it has to do with the resources. We got an opportunity to clear all the music that we wanted. I remember 1-9 just put in a music. I wasn't thinking about it, but he put in the music. Which one was it? With the bass, the 808.
Just Ice.
Just Ice. Oh man, the Just Ice song and the Big Daddy Kane song. All those little details matter, and they wouldn't happen without money. All of the archival footage that we put in this film that you enjoy, it matters. It makes a difference between, you know, watching somebody make a reenactment and watching the real thing. So a lot of it has to do with this film. Wasn't just that we had a vision and we're just brilliant at making films, which is also true. But it also was, we had an opportunity that a lot of our peers didn't. We had resources. And I want to encourage everybody who has resources or who are in a position to distribute resources to think of that when they're passing out.
I just want to add one last point, because the question was, what do I think about hip-hop now? Most people think about the music, but for us it's also about the opportunity at the time, what Erik was saying, as well as, like, Nas right now is exec producing a lot of films, and he's giving a lot of new filmmakers chances to do that. Jay-Z's partnered up with the Weinsteins to create the Khalid Brower and now the Trayvon Austin story. These are now new opportunities to get into film. So I think for hip-hop, it opened the door for all of us here. You know, we're first-time filmmakers. Roxanne's a pioneer, the art form, and Martha's taken into education. But we're seeing now that hip-hop has opened doors into film, music, education. We're telling stories. We've got an education curriculum, like as Martha's doing, that's going to hit the school systems. So it's opened up so many doors. It all taught us how to be entrepreneurs and self-thinkers. And I think now is the time that the opportunity is golden. Like, we're in the new age of film right now, that they're giving chances out. And we don't need actually requesting them from a lot of networks. We're making them, and they're coming to us. We're now getting more calls than we've ever gotten to do films on any genre. We just finished a 2-hour film on the LA riots with John Singleton that we co-executive produced. Thank you. And again, we're first-time film. We get opportunities to create films that go beyond just hip-hop, and I think it's time now to reach beyond what we were traditionally just given small opportunities to do and create a new path for ourselves. So I think hip-hop has been a tool that we've using now to create new opportunities, and it's time we take that shot.